I was standing at the front of the vineyard venue, adjusting the lace sleeves of my wedding dress for what felt like the 100th time, when the entire crowd suddenly went silent. At first, I thought maybe the ceremony music had stopped. Then I noticed every single person staring toward the entrance. I turned around, and my stomach dropped. Walking down the stone pathway toward the ceremony was my future mother-in-law, Patricia, wearing a wedding dress. Not a cream dress, not an ivory dress, not a light-colored dress. An actual white bridal gown. A floor-length satin gown with a train. For a second, I genuinely thought I was hallucinating. The guests started whispering. Someone gasped. My maid of honor nearly dropped her bouquet. And Patricia? She smiled as if nothing was wrong, as if showing up to her son's wedding dressed as a bride was perfectly normal. I looked toward my fiancé, Ethan. I expected anger, embarrassment, something. Instead, Ethan looked surprisingly calm. Too calm. Then he leaned toward me and whispered something that made absolutely no sense. Don't worry, she's doing exactly what we expected. I stared at him. Expected? What did he mean expected? Before I could ask, Patricia reached the front row and dramatically adjusted her train. Several guests actually pulled out their phones. My father looked ready to explode. The officiant looked confused. And Patricia sat down with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. Like she'd just won something. What nobody knew was that Ethan had spent the last 3 weeks preparing for this exact moment. And Patricia had absolutely no idea what was about to happen. Looking back now, I should have seen the warning signs years earlier. My name is Lauren. I'm a commercial architect from Colorado. I met Ethan almost 4 years ago when our firms worked together on a downtown redevelopment project. He was funny, kind, confident without being arrogant. The kind of guy who remembered small details. The kind of guy who always made people feel comfortable. Our relationship moved naturally. No drama. No games. At least not until I met Patricia. The first time we had dinner together, she spent 2 hours talking about herself. Every accomplishment Ethan mentioned somehow became her accomplishment. When Ethan talked about buying his first home, she reminded everyone she helped him pick the neighborhood. When he mentioned graduating college, she reminded everyone she drove him to orientation. When he talked about his promotion, she somehow made it about sacrifices she made 20 years earlier. At first, I thought she was just proud. Then things started getting weird. 3 months into our relationship, Ethan and I planned a weekend trip to Seattle. The night before we left, Patricia called him crying. Apparently, she had suddenly become very sick. Ethan rushed over. When he arrived, she was sitting on the couch eating takeout and watching television. Perfectly healthy. She admitted she just didn't want him leaving for the weekend. I laughed when he told me. Ethan didn't. A year later, things got worse. Patricia started showing up uninvited. She would knock once and immediately let herself inside. One Saturday morning, I walked into my kitchen wearing pajamas and nearly screamed when I found Patricia making coffee. In my house, using my coffee maker, as if she lived there. When I confronted her, she acted offended. I'll be family soon. That was her excuse. Every time, I'll be family soon. Then came the engagement. And that's when the mask really slipped. Ethan proposed during a hiking trip in Aspen. It was perfect, I cried. He cried. A couple nearby actually applauded. For exactly 24 hours, everything was wonderful. Then Patricia found out. She called Ethan 17 times in one day. 17? Not to congratulate us, not to celebrate, to complain. She thought the ring was too expensive. She thought the proposal location was selfish. She thought we should postpone the wedding. And most importantly, she thought Ethan was abandoning her. That phrase became her favorite weapon. You're abandoning your mother. She repeated it constantly. The wedding planning process became a nightmare. Patricia hated every decision. Every single one. The venue, the flowers, the guest list, the menu, the photographer, my dress, especially my dress. When she first saw photos of my wedding gown, she stared at the screen for several seconds before saying something I'll never forget. It's beautiful. I smiled. Then she added, it's a shame I'll never look that good in white again. At the time, I thought it was a joke. Now I know it wasn't. About 2 months before the wedding, Ethan accidentally discovered something shocking. Patricia had been telling relatives that the wedding wasn't financially stable. According to her, Ethan was paying for everything because I couldn't afford my share. Which was ridiculous. I earned more than Ethan. When confronted, she claimed it was a misunderstanding. Then she cried. Then she played the victim. The usual routine. But that wasn't the discovery that changed everything. A few weeks later, Ethan's cousin Megan called him. She sounded nervous. There's something you need to know. Apparently, Patricia had been bragging privately, not complaining. Bragging. She had repeatedly told relatives she planned to teach Lauren a lesson at the wedding. Nobody knew exactly what she meant, but several family members heard similar comments. At first, Ethan didn't tell me. He wanted proof, and unfortunately, he got it. 1 week before the wedding, Megan sent him screenshots. Patricia had accidentally posted messages into a family group chat. Messages she thought were private. One message read, "Just wait until everyone sees who the real queen is." Another read, "No bride is taking my place." I felt sick reading them. No bride is taking my place? Who talks about their son's wedding like that? That's when Ethan made a decision. He stopped hoping Patricia would behave. Instead, he started preparing, quietly, carefully, without telling her. The wedding day finally arrived. The weather was perfect. The vineyard looked like something from a movie. For a few hours, everything seemed peaceful. Too peaceful. Then Patricia arrived, wearing the wedding dress. And suddenly all the pieces fell into place. The comments, the jealousy, the threats, the messages, everything. The ceremony somehow continued. I don't know how. I spent half the time trying not to stare at Patricia. The guests spent the other half staring for me. When Ethan and I exchanged vows, Patricia looked furious. Actually furious, as if she were the one being betrayed. But the strangest part happened during the reception, because Patricia wasn't trying to hide her behavior anymore. She floated from table to table fishing for compliments. She kept asking people what they thought about her dress. Not my dress. Her dress. Then she started telling guests that she and Ethan had always shared a special bond. Several relatives looked visibly uncomfortable. By dinner, the atmosphere had become awkward. By dessert, it became unbearable. Then Patricia made her move. She grabbed the microphone and announced she wanted to make a speech. Nobody had approved a speech. Nobody had asked for a speech. But before anyone could stop her, she began talking. At first, it sounded emotional. Then it became disturbing. She talked about raising Ethan. She talked about sacrifices. She talked about being the most important woman in his life. Then she said something that made the room freeze. Sometimes mothers lose their sons to women who don't appreciate them. The entire room went silent. I could actually hear silverware hitting plates. Patricia smiled. She thought she had won. Then Ethan stood up and finally revealed what he'd been planning for weeks. He walked to the DJ booth, picked up a remote, and activated the giant projector screen behind the dance floor. Patricia looked confused. The room grew quiet. Then the first screenshot appeared, one of her messages, the one about teaching me a lesson. Gasps echoed across the room. Patricia's smile vanished. Then another screenshot appeared. Then another. Then another. Messages, comments, insults, manipulation, everything. Displayed in front of 200 wedding guests, family members, friends, co-workers, everyone. The room erupted into whispers. Patricia looked horrified. For the first time all day, she seemed genuinely scared. And Ethan wasn't finished. Because buried among those screenshots was something nobody expected, including Patricia herself. Something that would completely destroy the image she'd spent years creating. And when the next message appeared on that screen, her entire face turned white.